What's going on, guys? Episode 1 of the Open Brother Project. The Open Brother Project is something that I've been working on for a while. Something I've been thinking about for a while. Thinking a little too long. It was time for some action. It's a podcast it's men learning from other men. Me, particularly, learning from other men. So I just want to sit down with a bunch of men from different walks of life who have walked different paths, and I just want to hear the lessons that they've gone through, the trials and tribulations, everything that's helped them become the man that they are today. And hopefully, through doing that, it shows other men, younger men, men my age, men older, men of all types, it shows them what they can learn, shows them, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I know that as a man growing up without a father figure, that it's been very, very hard for me to find guidance. And podcasts and YouTube videos and just random occurrences have always been the things that have taught me the lessons that I've needed to learn. So I'm hoping that this podcast does the same for somebody. The first episode is with my friend Dan. We have an interesting conversation. We touch on, emotions. We touch on how it's so easy to be mistaken for gay because we use our emotions, or we wear a certain color, or we act a certain way. We touch on him coming out as bisexual. And then we also touch on me coming out as somebody who decided to, I guess for lack of better words, devote his life to God. I started praying to God rather than the universe, and I started turning to that whole life, going to church, reading the Word, and the similarities of when he came out and the way I came out is very similar. Had to come out to your family and friends, awkward for some of them. People still don't know how to take you now that they know. Very, very similar. So it was an interesting conversation there. And I hope you guys get something out of it. And Dan, thank you so much for that conversation. You have no idea how much it helped me. You have no idea how much it actually pushed me to do this. So thank you so much for that. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Open Brother, episode 1. Peace.
Yeah.
The recording. Cool, man. Well, thank you for agreeing to have a chat with me. Welcome.
Yeah, man.
We can just jump right into it. Pretty much, this is gonna be for my podcast. I don't know if you've checked it out at all. It's Unapologetically Human with Dan Boivin, and it's about a lot of things, but largely just about trying to understand myself and other people and the world that we live in through these crazy modern times that we find ourselves in. And
True.
yeah, and I just really love having conversations with interesting people, artists, entrepreneurs, and connecting. So thank you for being here.
Man, of course. And I actually did listen to it at the very beginning. Like when you first made your podcast, I started tuning in, and I was like, this is really, really cool. Because I love to see people start podcasts myself.
Yeah.
It's always been a really, really cool thing to take in and see happen and see the growth and how it changes and everything. With you have 7 inches of new hair. I didn't see all this
I've
before.
got a lot. Yeah. like 14. It's hidden under my hat a little bit right now.
It looks wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I love it. But so why don't you introduce yourself, and if you recall how we met, we can both touch on it. But
True. Well, for me, I guess you'd say I'm an artist and entrepreneur. Definitely a psychedelic enthusiast. Yeah, so I guess you could say artist because I paint. Like right now I'm sitting in my art studio. I make clothing. I produce podcasts. I like to focus on a lot of men's health and men's issues. So I started doing that recently and becoming a coach. Yeah, I do a bunch of things. I've had a lot of jobs in my life. And so I wear a lot of different hats nowadays. I do a lot of different things. I'm a crypto investor, an NFT investor. I do a bunch of stuff. But I guess my main career for the past few years has been film and television. Been working in film and television for quite some time in the locations aspect of it and in set deck, which is just like dressing sets and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's just a bunch of stuff, Wild ride. Life's a wild ride. And I've
It
been
really is, man. And I don't think you introduced yourself. Your name? What's your name?
Colin Cummings, Colin, Colin Michael Cummings. Yeah, I always
Welcome.
describe what I do more than
Oh
my name.
shit! Someone's gonna fucking steal your identity now. You gave the middle name.
It's all right. It's all right. My grandfather has the same name, so somebody
Oh,
already took it.
nice. You're like, I got it from someone else already.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, yeah, that's so interesting because I was thinking earlier, well, a couple things. Like one, as I often do, like I've pretty much the guests that I have had on my podcast, they've been friends. They've been people that I know through various avenues and that I've come across in life, and just interesting people. And I'm like, we'd have a fucking great conversation, which is the one of the main reasons I started my podcast in the first place, right? And just like interesting world that we find ourselves in now with social media and stuff. Because I can touch on how we met. I don't even actually. Oh, I'm trying to think who it was through. If it was.
It was Mike Brick
Oh yeah, Burkick, or
Burkick.
however you pronounce it.
I
How do
think you
you
got
know?
it. You got it.
Yeah, how do you know him?
It was so long ago. I think. Oh yeah, this is it. I came with my friend Mike, one of my really good friends, Mike. He knew Mike, right? And they connected, I think, on some excursion or something like that. And then he was like, I'm going to this thing and it's gonna be pretty cool. And I was like, let's go. We were both living downtown at the time, so it was like
Mm.
an easy thing to just go and do because we were living at like Davenport and Christie at the time in Toronto. And yeah, we just came in and opened ourselves up to the whole experience that he had going on, and it was really really cool experience.
Yeah, I remember now as well. It was the mental health and entrepreneurship event that he put on at CSI. And so
Yeah,
he had like, four or five speakers who, have reached or attained relative amount of success in the entrepreneurial field that they have created for themselves. And it's like entrepreneurship. I have some of my own experiences with entrepreneurship and being a manager at different businesses and stuff as well, just like you. A lot of careers, a lot of different hats, a lot of different
yeah,
artistic creative avenues that I've been exploring and honing over the years. And yeah, just a really interesting event talking about, there's like an idea in entrepreneurship, like the trough of sorrow, that a lot of entrepreneurs are really on that solo hero's journey on their own to create the things they're creating, and they've really got no one to rely upon but themselves in a lot of ways. And that they actually experience things like depression, anxiety at a higher level than the general population because of the amount of risks that they undertake and stress that they can undertake, especially when it's like, I've had friends that I used to work for a general contracting renovation business, and it's like, you got like a however many tens of thousands of dollars payroll to make every 2 weeks, and like you have no option but to make that payroll and pay your employees whether you're getting paid or not, and just having to figure it out, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so we met each other at that event. I had actually, it was so weird because a buddy of mine that I had met up in Barrie when I was up in college, up in Barrie, was at the event, and he just like heard my voice and was like, "Is that fucking Dan?" And then he came over and we were chatting. Alex Brown, I don't know if you remember him, but he's been quite a successful entrepreneur as well. And then yeah, I remember, I think it was your buddy, is it Jordan? We went over to his place, had kind of like the men's group kind of chatting with each other.
Were you there?
I was there, yeah, yeah.
You were at the men's group?
Yeah, yeah, with Ariel.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you were there. I
Yeah.
forget. I always forget who was there. Yeah. Oh my God. I forgot about that. Wow. Wow. Because yeah, I always remember Ariel because I ended up going into stand-up comedy. So like we ended up connecting more and more.
Mm,
And Jordan, of course, we were friends. Yeah, we were really close. We were working together at the time, like through video production and stuff.
mm.
Oh yeah, wow. So you were there too. That was an amazing time. That was an
Mm,
amazing time. That is actually when I said I wanted to get like into like men's focused type of stuff, like that was the seed for it. That men's group was really something. Just the
mm.
just the stories that came out and yeah, the tears that came out of some people and how it helped some guys and how it moved some people. It was just amazing stuff.
For sure. Um, yeah, so maybe talk a little bit more about that. Like, what are you up to? Is it Open Brother
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah.
started recently? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
talk
It
about that
just
a little bit.
yeah, open brother, it's just a play on words like open source, the way like you have like a website or a web program or app and you can see under the hood and see how it's all working. I wanted to start something like that for men. So I'm the open brother and I kind of just expose myself emotionally
Mm,
and just like my inner workings and what's going on, how I'm getting through things, and how I've gotten through certain things and hopefully it just helps some guys out there because it's like so many of us don't have any guidance. So many of us like even the ones with father figures still come out as an adult man and still don't have the proper guidance in things, don't have the proper community, don't have the nurturing like in a friends group kind of thing.
mm,
And it gets really hard. I've been through a lot of hard stuff because of that exact thing and brotherhood and and community, like it's so needed with guys and when we just don't do it enough, we don't think of that enough. We're always trying to just hustle through things and grind through things and it's really it gets tough. It gets tough. I mean, for me it's been really tough. So like I just
mm,
wanted to be able to open up and hopefully help some guys. Like that men's group was a seedling for stuff like this. And also when I was working in film and television, I was working with a bunch of young guys because I was kind of managing them. I had to tell them what to do. And in locations, we have people who are like LSPs, and basically it's just like a gopher type of thing on set. They run around, they do stuff for you,
yeah.
and I kept talking to them about because they were young, so I was talking to them about integrity and working for themselves eventually. Because I'm like, you guys can do it. Like I
Mm.
remember telling one guy, Eli, he's like a 17-year-old. He's like, I don't know what to do with my life. And I'm like, man, I'm like, if you buckle down right now, by the time you're 29, 30, you could be an astronaut. Like you can do anything right now. Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
just decided that you're going to do it, you could do it. And a couple of the guys ended up messaging me recently. One of them, the guy Eli, young
He's like,
guy,
I'm an
he's
astronaut, bro.
he was like, I want to be an actor, and I'm like, you can do that. And then all of a sudden, he's like sending me pictures of him on set, like doing the acting thing. Uh,
Amazing.
and and then another one, I was talking to him about crypto, and I'm like, because he messaged me, he had some questions, and I was like, what are you doing with yourself now? Because he wanted to get into film and television as well.
Mm,
And I'm like, did you take that route? And he's like, no. He's like, I actually remembered what you told me. He's like, it kind of stuck with me. He's like, and I started my own business.
mm.
He's like, and it's been going really well. And I was like, completely choked up when he told me that. Like, I was lucky that we were just on Instagram messaging because, yeah,
Yeah.
I got teary eyed just hearing that. And yeah, it just shows like if you just open up a little bit, if you're just vulnerable a little bit of with what you know and what you've experienced, it can actually have such amazing ripple effects. And
Mm,
just seeing that in those two guys, And the third guy, this kid Sean, I remember everybody was getting high and drunk within that group of kids on set and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and they all left, and he came back, and he's like, I remembered what you said about integrity, and he's like, I couldn't leave you by yourself, you know, I just wanted to stick it out and just keep working with you. He's like, I know you need somebody here. And I was like, fuck. I was like, I cry really easy, man. So like I'm
Yeah.
even getting choked up now. And I was like, fuck. I was like, that's incredible, man. I was just, yeah. So just little things like that, just little nudges along the way of life kind of led me to the Open Brother Project. And yeah, now I'm just trying to record myself as much as possible, talk about the things I'm reading, and just try to be an example. Try to be an
Mm-hmm.
example of what a good man can be, even if you come from even if you come from pretty messed up beginnings. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you can still salvage yourself and become like a good, upstanding man. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's why I was saying, it's this funny world we find ourselves in where it's like that was a few years ago now, like probably a year or two even before the pandemic, and time
Mm,
just flies so much, and we find ourselves in this world where like, we that is how we find ourselves connecting with people a lot of the time, especially because life is busy and work and relationships and chores and just spending some time relaxing and then working on any projects or hobbies or it's like it's really can be hard to find time or to really make the time for your friendships and for relationships with people and stuff like that. And
yeah,
we
exactly.
find ourselves connecting on Instagram, and it's like like you were saying, and it's really relatable for me, and some of the sharing I've done with my podcasts and my account on Instagram, Unapologetically Human. When I first started it, I was doing a lot of like really vulnerable writing and sharing about some of the pain and the challenges that I've been challenged with. And yeah, it's just like it's interesting because you creating what you're creating is what you're one of the streams of sort of consciousness and of creation that I'm tapped into. And you know
True.
we the algorithms feed us, the more we look at someone's stuff, the more they start showing up on our algorithms. But you're like
Of
you're
course.
one of those people that I really relate with the things that you share, and really appreciate that you do it. Because yeah, like you're saying, like you don't know just how much what we do and what we say affect other people and how much they need to hear it. And it's like I know you're a fan of Jordan Peterson, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and it's like something that he talks about a lot, where he's like it's just it's tragic, and it's crazy just how like starved people are, but young men in particular, for just like some encouragement. Like they've never had anyone in their life tell them, like you said, like you can do it, you can do that, you can start a business, you can become an astronaut, like if you really buckle
Yeah,
down. Because yeah, like this journey of life is tough, man. And yeah, like having for everybody needs people in their lives that they can be really open with and honest with and authentic, vulnerable. But yeah, especially men, because of the upbringing, we so many of us, it's like how old are you?
me, I just turned 36 yesterday.
Oh yeah, yesterday. Happy birthday,
Thank
man.
you, thank you, thank you.
So sweet. Yeah, like I'm turning 36 in October. And
Oh wow.
yeah, I know I look like a little baby.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's true.
I still got that baby face. But yeah, just we growing up, we very very much got that story. Like men don't show vulnerabilities. Any type of vulnerability is a weakness. Men don't have, let alone show, emotions and stuff. And when you say like you cry easily and you get kind of like you were even welling up with what you were saying just a
Yeah,
minute ago, it's like it's funny because Jordan Peterson's like that. Like you see a lot of times when he talks, especially when he talks about like some of the tragic stories and challenges that people have shared with him, and just like how little people actually need in the realm of like a bit of fucking encouragement, and like how far it actually goes. And he gets really teary eyed. And I heard a criticism of him recently that how easily he gets teary-eyed may actually be a function of his emotional instability, which he honestly talks about, his own neuroticism and temperament
Yeah.
being being somewhat challenging, which definitely I can relate to. But I also see it as like, that's a sign that like you've done the work and you're in touch with your humanity. Like, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
women stereotypically have more emotions and are, well, quote unquote, they have more emotions, or they're quick to get more emotional and cry and stuff like that. But it's like when you've really done the work, which I know you have, I have in my own ways, and you can really be in touch with your own humanity, then and sort of allow yourself to feel your emotions and to express your emotions without cutting them off for fear of judgment and criticism, or losing friends, or maybe getting beat up, or
Yeah.
all sorts of like homophobia in our culture,
Of course.
um so yeah, it's like it's really important to provide that for other people. It's really amazing,
It's
like.
Yeah, man. It's so I'm gonna tell you a story in a second. I just gotta close the blinds a little bit because my
Okay.
sweater's blinding you right now.
No, man, your sweater looks
It's
dope as fuck. He's got like this nice bright hot pink sweater on. It's sweet.
but to say what I was gonna say, like to your point, I remember I was on Instagram and I was talking with this girl. We're just friends, and I was sharing a lot of stuff like I usually do, and she was like, "You're gay, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm sitting with my girlfriend right now." I'm like, "Why are
Yeah.
you?" She's like, "Well, you're just so free and open." I was like, "What?" I'm like, "So that's like the precursor to being gay?" I was like,
Well, but in the story that we grew up with, it is, right. And
"Exactly."
I in one of my well, actually the last podcast I published was with a buddy of mine, Jordan Lindo. I don't know, do you know him?
I do know that name for some reason.
Yeah, he's really really cool dude. Yeah, I think he's in like the GTA as well. You could have crossed paths
Okay.
with him sometime. But yeah, like I had kind of near the end of our podcast had mentioned to him that I recently came out as bisexual, and
Hmm.
it's something I talk about often, that like the stories that we grew up with about what it means to be a man and to be strong and stoic, and but like we can talk, even I know you're into stoicism, right? Like we can talk a bit about stoicism at some point, but there's a distinction between stoicism as sort of like a methodology of different ways of sort of thinking and questioning yourself and living your life and being really in touch with yourself, versus the way that's like capital S stoicism. Like it's like it's a
Yes.
philosophy,
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
life philosophy. But the stoicism, small s stoicism that we grew up with, was like men hold all their feelings in and deal with everything themselves, and that's what puts a lot of men in a fucking early grave.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, I just frequently say it's like, whether you're gay or straight or bi or trans or whatever the fuck, non-binary, anything like that, it's like the idea that, well, like we had such limitations from what I remember, culturally, and it's like it's interesting, like where do we learn this stuff really? Because I remember, as far back as I can remember as a young boy, that we were teaching these ideas to each other, and we were policing each other with these ideas of what it means
Yeah.
to be a boy or a girl or a man. And like these ideas that like boys don't like pink or purple because they're girl colors, and boys don't like skipping because that's a girl's activity, and like boys don't like flowers. And my whole life I was like, it, it's interesting because on the one hand I was like, I rebelled against those types of beliefs, but then as I grow older I still see, especially the challenges in exploring my own sexuality and coming out in recent years to like some of my best friends and my family, and how like my brothers were the last people that I told for you know, for those same types of reasons of like, it's like I told my mom and my dad and my sister and a bunch of my best friends, but I was like more afraid to tell my brothers, kind of thing, right? So it's like, despite rebelling against some of these ideas, I also can recognize how deeply affected I am by it. And it's like, it's hard to even like comprehend or begin to have a grasp on how we're affected by these ideas until you like really do the work and see how much it's just all piled on. Because I was like, what do you mean boys don't like pink and purple, man? Like they're great colors. Like pink's
Yeah, man.
bright, it's awesome. Donatello was my favorite Ninja Turtle. I always loved purple. Like my favorite color was blue, but I even questioned, like, I'm like, I think my favorite color might have been purple if I wouldn't have been gay bashed for it and made to feel fucking so threatened about it. And I was also like, you know, I like skipping, like fuck you. Like and like boys don't like flowers. That's the thing. Actually, this is I did a bit of stand up myself, and this is something that I actually would like to maybe like make a little 5 minute bid on and go do like an open mic. I haven't done an open mic in the last few years because the last one I did was extremely nerve wracking for whatever reason. But yeah, just this idea that it's like boys don't like flowers. Okay, first of all, like we know that when we're like disconnected from nature, we are like not well. And of what there is in nature to connect with, it's like, you know, you got the blue water and sky, you got the green and brown trees and forests and ground. And then you have flowers, man. Flowers are just like every fucking color you can imagine. These bright, like nature's fucking art, candy, whatever, and they smell good. It's like we literally have a saying that to like soak up the sweetness of life, you stop and smell the fucking flowers. And then
Flowers, yeah.
alongside that, we have this like cultural story of being a man and you don't like flowers because it's girly. It's like, man, fuck that. Flowers are like one of the best things in the whole world. Like to this day, it's like they look beautiful, they're colorful, they fucking light up and sort of like accentuate the natural landscape, and they
they
smell great. Like,
they're
come
the
on.
thing they're the thing that make they're the thing that make the forest beautiful, right? Like if you're in
One
a
of
meadow
them,
or
yeah.
something, it's like one of those things that stands out the most, almost like
It,
pink, red, yellow,
yeah,
whites, like everything.
everything,
Like
everything.
I don't know.
And it's like,
I dress like a flower myself now. I'm pretty much
yeah,
like that. Like my shoes, I was just wearing pink shoes. Like I wear pink shoes, I wear pink shirts. I have a pink hat that I had on, but I thought it'd be too bright. But
yeah.
like,
Actually, I saw that in your like video yesterday or the other
yeah.
day, and I was like, I really like your fucking pink hat, man.
Yeah, man, I broke away from that. I I don't I kind of broke away from that when I was like getting into like the chakras and stuff, and I learned that color is like good for your mind. To be
Mm,
seeing colors is like good to, like, if you're depressed all the time, because I've had depression for a long time from the time I was a little kid.
mm.
And to and then I looked at my closet one day and I was like, everything's black and gray. I'm like, maybe if I wore colors I might be happier, or maybe I'd activate this throat chakra or this root chakra or this or that.
Mm.
So I just started getting really into colors, and then I started painting, and I was like, yo, give me these bright colors. I'm like, these bright colors are the shit. Like, and then like I was like, why wouldn't I wear these as well? Like I just, like, like,
Mm.
I don't know, like I got real secure in who I was, through spirituality and through just not caring. I mean, through psychedelics too, but like through just wanting to break out of depression. It was like I'd rather look, gay than be depressed and like wallowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like come on, like seriously.
Well, and it's also that idea too, like like, you know, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. You know, it's
True,
like
true.
it's interesting. I actually heard something the other day that said something about like, you know, like these people, I I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was almost like rather than challenge some of the kind of cultural stereotypes that get people triggered. It's like those people would rather be triggered and put you back in your place and see you in the fucking ground dead than let you like be yourself sort of thing and be supportive to you. And it's like you got to recognize like the signs of who do you have in your life really that is like on your side, because like a lot of people, fuck man, it's like the society in many ways is collapsing around us with obviously like the pandemic, we got the wars, we got, you know,
Yep.
these culture wars between the left and the right extremes on both sides. And it's just like, you know, I actually just wrote, my fiance and I, we have like a little book that we've made where we do reflections at the end of the year. And I usually, as I do with so many things, I sort of put shit off and put shit off. And a lot of times it's actually because I really want to give it the time that it deserves to kind of like do it in like one go. And I know it's going to take a couple or a few hours. So I sort of don't make the time, but I actually just finally made the time earlier today to write my reflections for last year, you know, and was just writing how it seems like, you know, a lot of veils are being removed from the eyes of humanity right now to see the true chaotic reality of the world that we live in, rather than the, you know, bubblegum corporate fake reality entertainment that we've had, you know, layered over top of us for the last few decades. And even I was listening to a monk dialogue. The University of Toronto, one of their departments is called the Monk School of Global Affairs, and they had Jordan Peterson on a few years ago, and they have like really, really big people on for these like monk debates. And they're one of my favorite sources of information, expert like conversations with experts. And something that they kind of like their byline is that it's all about having like civil and substantive discourse and conversations and debates and dialogues about the big issues and ideas that are going on in our world. And lost my train of thought. Happens sometimes. Sometimes it's just go on such a wave, man. But yeah, it's just like these veils are being kind of like lifted, and we're just seeing how chaotic things truly are. Oh, that's what his guest every Friday for a half-hour podcast is this woman, Janice Gross Stein, and she's the founding director of the Monk School of Global Affairs. So she's like a world-renowned author and political commentator and stuff like that. And just give me 1 sec. I think my internet's fucking up. I'm actually just gonna switch my network here quickly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. I didn't know that podcast existed.
Are you back? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing, man. I listened to it. The one on Fridays I listen to every week, and throughout the course of the pandemic, they've had 3 different like sets of dialogues. It used to just be the monk debates, and then I think they started the monk podcast, and then which has like over 1 million like downloads. Like it's quite popular.
Cool.
And then they started this like expert dialogue series with people, and the first one was really focused on like conversations about the world after COVID or learning to live with COVID. And then that was sort of like the fall of 2020, and then spring of 2021 they did one, and then fall of 2021 they did one. So they're just like they're just wrapping up like the last few dialogues for this one. And yeah, I'm talking like the guy who's the host. He's a really great host. His name's Rudyard Griffiths or something. Really interesting name. But like he's talking to like Steven Pinker and Daniel Dennett and so many just like massive people in their
Yeah.
respective fields and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it's highly
That's
recommend checking it out.
that's really cool. I didn't know that existed. I've done work around that school, and I always would look at it and I'd be like, "What is that?" I'd be like, "What is that place?" I'd be like, I never like understood what it actually was. And, yeah, it's really
Hmm.
cool to hear. They have some cool things going on in there. But yeah,
Yeah.
the veils being lifted, that's a real thing. A lot of things that a lot of things that we thought couldn't happen are starting to happen, and it's doing a lot. Like, it's hard to see, right? Especially if you don't practice gratitude and look at things from a certain way, but it's causing a lot of good.
Mm.
It's causing a lot of good. It's causing people to kind of go after what they've always wanted to go after. A lot of people in life, like myself, they usually need like a death close to them to really check in with the fact that you don't know how much time you have left, right?
Mm.
Um, it's kind of like the old thing of like when you have a stuffy nose, you're like, oh man, I can't, I'm gonna appreciate when my nose isn't stuffed up anymore. Like when I'm
Yeah,
not sick, oh man, I'm gonna go out and take a
yeah.
run when I'm not sick. I can't wait.
Yeah.
You kind of just become ungrateful, and yeah, now I'm seeing a lot of people, they're way more grateful for being able to go out and do certain things and things that they just wouldn't do before. I know me myself, like I would never go out to restaurants before and stuff like that. Like I just didn't care for it at all.
Mm.
And now it's like a completely different kind of thing. I didn't care to go out for walks before.
Hmm.
I remember, and now I go out for walks like every single day. Like I don't know, it's just like yeah, it's just it's helped me, if anything, to practice a lot of gratitude because you just never know. You never know what turn the world is going to take.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
can just take a turn. We always sit back and we always look at things that have happened and we're like, that's history, and that doesn't happen now, and that doesn't happen here.
Well,
And
we're more evolved now.
yeah,
That was sort of
yeah,
like the story. That's
yeah,
kind of what I remember from like when like learning about history, you know, like ancient Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans and all the collapsed empires of the past, that it's like, you know, we're in the modern world now and we're different and we're better and we're smarter than all those
yeah,
people from the past, even though so many of those people and cultures from the past gave us like so much of what we have today, and we don't even know how they did a lot of this stuff. Like we're still like, it
yeah,
must have been aliens that built
yeah,
Stonehenge and the pyramids, because we don't have any idea. With all our engineering smarts and technology, we still have not a fucking clue how they did it. But also like one of the last talks on the like the Friday members only podcast with Janice Gross Stein, they were talking about how, you know, this like past 30 years, and it's interesting because, you know, we're both in our mid 30s, and so this is really the time frame of our life, that since around 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, this has actually been kind of like the most unprecedented peaceful time in the history of the world. It's like, you know, we see
yeah,
this war break out in Europe, and it's like, well, before the last 30 years, like that was the norm for the last several hundred years, and we just get used to things being different. And you know, it's like the cooperation and peace that we've enjoyed
yeah,
and taken for granted, and not like
yeah,
understood how to be like grateful for what we have until it's gone, and then we're like, oh my god, what the fuck, everything's insane.
yeah, yeah,
But it's like, you know, global superpower and big power politics is the, you know, history of the world. Like do you know the guy named Ray Dalio? You ever heard of him?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have actually.
He's I've seen him in the realm of sort of like not necessarily help like self help, but kind of like business success motivation and stuff. And I listened to a video, like it was like a 45-minute video a couple weeks ago now, giving an outline of, I don't know if it's his newest book, but I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look for it. But he talks about he's a trader basically, and he talks about how when he was younger and was kind of newer to trading, there were certain things that happened where there was like these big global kind of things happening, and it made him think, well, the market's going to go this way on this, but then counterintuitively it went the opposite way. So he kind of was like, okay,
Yeah.
so what I thought was going to happen didn't happen. And so all these people that did the opposite thing, like what did they know that I didn't? And he started really looking into the sort of like, I guess, like market dynamics of geopolitical things that are going on and how they have kind of like panned out throughout history through like the rise and fall of empires. And so he
Yeah.
paints in 45 minutes, he paints this like really like interesting detailed picture of the like history of the rise and fall of the last like 4 or 5 empires, basically like the Dutch, the English, China, America, like the Spanish, and it is just like fascinating because it's like the you know the things that we're seeing now have always been the case, the
Yeah.
wars, the pandemics, whatever it might be. And it's like I guess like we could take some. I certainly do at least a little bit of solace that it's like these can be really stressful to see all this shit, especially no like culture or group of humans have had like the access to information to be bombarded with this stuff like we have. So it's new in that
Yeah.
sense,
That's what I was gonna say.
but at
That's
least we can like take like a little bit of solace in the fact that like literally every like set of humans through all of history have gone through similar types of things or worse, and we have found a way like through to the other side to continue building and growing and evolving and
yeah.
fixing the problems that we're faced with and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, that's the hopeful part. And I am very I have a lot of faith that we're gonna be just fine. And I just keep plugging away at life because I mean, got no choice really. I mean, I can't stop living. I know some people who they've stopped living completely. They've
Mm-hmm.
like just stopped and I just couldn't do it. I mean, even through the pandemic, I worked all through it. I was actually doing Uber Eats through the worst of the pandemic. So I was counterintuitively interacting with all of the city versus none of the city.
Oh
I was
man,
going around.
the whole pandemic, or for like the first like year and a half or so, I was a manager at a bar slash restaurant. So like for the first,
Mm,
the only time I was off and on CERB was, which is like unemployment for those of you if you're listening and aren't Canadian.
mhm.
Um, I was only off work for the first 2.5 or 3.5 months, like the first lockdown that we had. And then I was back to bar managing and I was the manager. So I was working full time and just, there is no prospect of a vaccine, no nothing yet. And I'm,
Yeah.
just surrounded by a massive patio at work full of unmasked people and stuff. Like it's been certainly a lot of uncertainty with both work and finances and health and stress and stuff throughout the pandemic. But then I left there and I went and was managing at a cannabis dispensary for like 9 months. And same thing. It's like I was managing there, but I was also like working the till retail and
Yeah.
just interacting with so many fucking people coming through. And it's like you gotta kind of just like shrug a little bit and throw your hands up and be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
gotta fucking live our lives, man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I was in the same boat. My wife, she was actually in the exact same boat as you because she works in the restaurant industry. And I think she had maybe, I don't think she had any time off really because she worked in a pretty big restaurant. So they just kind of scaled back she was assistant GM at the time, I
Mm.
believe, just higher up manager type. And so they just scaled back the employees, the servers and whatnot. And they still had work to do in terms of inventorying and doing certain things. And So she never actually, I don't think she actually took any time off at all. It was
Yeah.
just me because I was in film and television, so that shut down right away. So that's why I jumped over to Uber Eats because Serb wasn't even a thing, I don't think. Like right at the beginning. Like it wasn't a thing, it wasn't an option. So I just had to get through. And I'm glad I did. I'm very glad I did. It helped a lot. I Yeah, it helped so much. So much. But I mean now I'm kind of I don't know. Like I'm still at the point of living my life. I still have um I don't do Uber Eats anymore, but I still interact with as many people as possible. For my own mental health.
Mm.
I need to interact with people. It's just a thing that I have, so I like it, and I just keep doing it. Some people see it as irresponsible, but like it's I. But also, I went back to film and television, and I was one of the few people that was getting tested 4 times a week. So it's like I wasn't worried. Like I was getting tested every other day. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. I wasn't getting tested, but I was throughout the whole pandemic, I was getting temped at work every single day. So it's like I actually found it to be kind of interesting because it made me want to get one of those like little laser thermometer temperature checkers for myself at home because I was like, it's actually kind of interesting because if I were to just temp myself every day at home, maybe after the pandemic's done, it'd be like I would just like know immediately if like I was like had a fever, running a fever or something.
Yeah. I actually have one of those because when I went back to film and television, the position that I actually got was a COVID officer. So I became like the person that would maintain all the rules on the film sets. I would maintain the rules and I'd make sure people wore their masks and that they weren't too close. And
I bet
I
that was
was,
fun.
oh yeah, that was fun. That was very fun. Getting told to fuck off 10 times a day. It was
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
back in retail kind of thing, It was weird.
Well, it reminds me thinking of like, when restaurants open back up and have like same all these rules that a lot of them make no fucking sense. It's like,
At all.
you have to wear your mask if you're walking from the door to your table or from your table to the washroom or to go outside to smoke or whatever. But as soon as you sit down, you can take it off. It's like, man, this is like pissing in the fucking corner of the pool. Can we like please do something that makes some fucking sense? Like or just stop the theater, stop the like
Yeah.
COVID theater and hygiene theater shit. But
Yeah,
yeah, like
seriously.
this idea of like all these like anti-vaxxers and people saying they can't wear masks because of like health shit and that it's like, you know, fucking 17-year-old fucking hostesses that making minimum wage at some restaurant have to fucking be the ones to like deal with these people and shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, it had us all fighting each other
Well,
like
and
most
it's only
things do, right?
escalated, right?
Yeah. But actually to switch gears, for you, like going back to what you said about coming out as bisexual, how what was that like? Has it been what was it like that your whole life that you were like that? Or like how did you like were you always like that and then like you came out recently or how did all that come about?
So I my last podcast that I published, my buddy asked me about this and how does that work with my fiance and I, and it kind of was at the end of us like having like recorded for like 2 hours. So it was kind of like I'll talk about this in a future one, and I actually have a kind of like a double episode with another friend that I'm editing right now. That I did talk with her about it. I don't totally recall exactly what I said. So I'm just kind of
Okay.
giving a preamble. Apologies to anyone who's a regular listener if I'm repeating myself here. But
Mhm.
no, I appreciate you asking, and yeah, I guess I'm just interested to share and to hear your thoughts as well. Because my last friend I shared it with was a woman as well, and it's not something that I've talked with guys about a lot, and for obvious reasons. It's kind of like all the homophobia in our culture tends to come from men,
Oh,
and like it's so interesting too because it's also largely geared towards gay men, most of the homophobia in our culture, period, because it's like most women think other women are hot, or like I know tons that do, and that's
of
like a
course.
totally normal thing, and obviously guys are like down with that for the most part. And but
True.
it's like you have all these guys that are like super homophobic against gay gay men but not women, and then even women who they're not as homophobic or certainly not as vicious or aggressive or violent or threatening of violence, but they're still not into it. It's like it's just like the taboo is very on the side towards men. And so yeah, it's been a journey, man. It's been tough. It's been a rough, challenging like last few years because it is recent, it's new. It's like it was so like repressed in me because of the cultural like uh norms and ideas and the shame around this type of thing that it really wasn't even in my consciousness. Like it wasn't something that I was like present to, that I was like really like consciously aware that I was like hiding, or that I was like quote unquote in the closet. It
Mm.
was like I remember from the time I was like 5 in kindergarten, I was attracted to girls. I asked a girl to marry me when we grow up when we were in kindergarten. And I remember my first few crushes on girls when I was a kid. And it was interesting because in retrospect, hindsight's 2020. So as I really started to open up this conversation with myself, essentially what I consider to be two very different parts of myself. It's like it's bisexual. It's like you're neither straight nor gay, but then also you're both. It's like
Yeah.
whatever way you want to say it, right? So it's like internally, my experience of myself is that like we all have very very uh, distinctive different aspects of ourselves. Like we all, you know whether we're trying to lose weight or eat healthy or whatever, we've all had that experience where it's like one part of yourself is like, yo, let's go like get a slice of pizza or a burger or eat that cookie. And then
Mm.
another part of yourself is like, no. And it's like you have like, you have the more ancient, like it's interesting where these different parts of us may be coming from, because it's obviously complex, but it's almost like, we have our prefrontal cortex that tends to be the more adult, rational, responsible side that's like, do these things to reach your goals and create the life you want and the person you want to be. But then we have these more animalistic, childish, immature, unable to regulate our emotions, kind of like more brainstem area, where a lot of like the other stuff comes from, where like, maybe a lack of impulse control and a lot of addictive types of behaviors. That's one way that I think about it. And that actually was sort of a big part of the framework of this one program I did a couple years ago called Road to Hope. But yeah, so it's kind of like I had have you ever heard of Landmark?
I have heard of Landmark actually.
So I did Landmark, which is like a personal professional growth program. I did 4 different programs of theirs from like summer of 2018 to summer of 2019 ish. And I had this experience in the first like course that I did with them, where we did this fear exercise, and it just like it became really really in my consciousness, like in a way that was like a shift that I couldn't ignore anymore. That I
Oh.
had a gay part of myself that was screaming to be heard and not repressed, and my straight side sort of was the side of me doing the repressing. And
Mm.
that also is just a way for me to explain it. But I just realized like, okay, I got some fucking being with myself and conversing with these very different parts of myself, and some listening to do to the part of myself that's kind of yelling out and calling out, crying out to be heard, basically.
Yeah.
And that was like, end of 2018, mid to end of 2018. And so I really like I dove in. And it took a lot of it really to, regardless of what it might be in our lives, whether it's like, exploring the depths of who you are and your identity, or trying to like, create art and be who you are. That's really challenging for people, especially like the example I tend to think about is like Asian parents who are really strict academically on their kids to like do great at math, become a doctor or a lawyer, practice your fucking piano every day and like,
Yeah.
like that type of stuff. But there's like how many kids that are like, well, I don't want to be those things. I don't want to live my life for you. I don't want to live my life how your culture says that I should, or taught you that you have to be. Like, I want to be an artist. I want to be a musician. I want to do something and be my own person. And that takes courage. And I just recognized that I had to kind of have some courage to go down this path and explore for myself what was going on with me. And I've struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life too, and I was like, this is part of it, like this is obviously to me like part of it. And it's at a point in which I cannot ignore this anymore. And then as I explored it more, and I ended up like hooking up with a guy at the end of 2018 that I would like used to work with and I was friends with. And I kind of was just like, I just recognized, like we hung out a few times and I recognized that I had some attraction to him. And I kind of was like, I had this experience where I told myself, like, if something ends up potentially happening with this guy, which I suspected may be the case, I will not stop myself. I like essentially it's like I will not allow the stronger part of myself, my straight self that I've identified with my whole life pretty much,
Yeah.
stop the other part of myself if the other part of myself wants to go and explore itself. And so
Okay.
so that happened. And yeah, so it's been a journey for the last like few years now to really like explore that and work through all the shame and the challenging emotions and what that means and how are people going to like look at me differently or treat me differently, and to continue to explore and let it unfold, because it really was like it wasn't something I thought I was hiding. I was always attracted to women, but when I look back and see sort of like oh well, that makes more sense under this context, it's like a lot of things started making like a lot more sense. And yeah, it's just been a journey of really surrender and acceptance and curiosity and openness, and you know trying to have love and compassion for myself and accept myself and who I am.
Yeah. That's really amazing, man. That's really, really cool because it actually makes me like, as you bring up the shame, I remember like when I did my first ayahuasca experience, afterwards, the shaman, he was like a shaman Reiki healer type. He came to me and he's like now, because he'd done some Reiki and he'd done a bunch of things with me, and he was like, he touched my stomach and he's like, now you have to do without shame. He's like, there's energy in here. He's like, when you have shame, this energy can't be released in your the sacral area. He's like, so you have to do without shame. He's like, you have to do without shame. He just kept telling me that, and I think of that all the time. So it's funny that you bring that up because, like, it brightened you up because I could see you from, like, now that you're saying like when you came out, I could see you from before you came out, and then and it was funny because I remember seeing a few pictures of you and I was like, I think that guy's bisexual. And I didn't actually know. I didn't actually know, but like when you open up who you are, it kind of brightens you, and like I don't know, it's very good because in the last few years when I've seen your face, I see like a lot of brightness from it. Whereas before you came out, I could see a more conservative, a more, I don't want to say tightly wound, but like something that was like in more, something that was like closed off more.
Mm-hmm.
And now you seem more
Yeah.
open.
Well,
Much more
it's
open.
interesting too, because just like you were saying earlier, it's like, you know, that friend of yours asked you if you're gay because it's like you're more like freely expressed and you're able to.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because like when it really comes down to it, it's like if a man expresses like, definitely the thing I'm thinking of is joy, but also almost like having your defenses down. That's kind of what it
Yes.
is, right? Like it's like if there's some clarity of seeing that like you are not hold up inside yourself, defending yourself from
Yes, yes.
from all of the judgments and insults and stuff that may come your way, that it's like even just being able to like freely express yourself and be in touch with your feminine side or your emotions, which every single human has, you know, that if you express joy more openly, it's like, you gay? Like, and you know, it's just, it's so silly because yeah, it's like there's a couple things that I remember. It's funny you said like about pictures, because there was like this girl that I used to work with at this call center one time. I had like this one picture as my profile picture on Facebook where like I was like at a friend's cottage. I was probably like a bit wasted, but I just had this like smile on my face, and it was sort of like this just like exuberant, like joyful smile. and and she put this comment on it, sort of like, I don't know how I like feel about like this picture, man. Like there's just like something about it. She was like such a fucking hippie too. It's so funny. But she's like, there's just like
That's
something
funny.
about it, man. Like I'm just like, and I remember like that as much as I felt like I didn't know that this, like, I had this part of myself or questions about it, it was like I remember that picture being like a little interaction with someone in a window into like, oh, I look like gay because of this fucking picture. Or like this one other picture, I'm with like 4 or 5 of my like best guy friends, and I had like, rather than sort of having like my hand my buddy was like kneeling in front of me and I was like standing up behind him, and rather than having like my hand sort of like resting on like his shoulder, I had it sort of like on his like chest, and
Yeah.
my fingers were sort of spread a little bit, and I just, that was another moment where I remember like looking at this picture and like, oh, like, you know how like, you know, flipping gay,
Yes,
like
yes.
flipping your wrists and stuff is like a
Yeah.
thing. It's like I remember having that thought and that fear of like, oh, like my hand looks like gay in this picture, I don't like this picture stuff. So it's like, it's just so silly, and there's all these like little, it's almost like, you know, that you hear more in our culture recently of kind of like microaggressions and stuff, that it's almost like these like little, like there's so much policing of masculinity by guys throughout our
Yeah.
childhood, and it obviously increases through like adolescence and stuff, and so much fear around how we express ourselves and how we project ourselves, that like so many little like micro things might be construed by someone else as being gay, and
Yeah.
that might like threaten us in some way. And for me, like I was a runt when I was a kid, man. Like it's like you said, like I look young still. It's like I looked young when I was like, I was the smallest boy in my class throughout like all of elementary and middle and high school, except for a couple years there was somebody like around my size or smaller than me. So I was like a
Yeah.
fucking runt, and I always looked fucking 5, 10 years younger than I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and I had an older brother that I I couldn't fight. I couldn't fight him. He was a year and a half older than me. So I like learned from a really young age, like I can't use violence. I can't use physicality in order to solve any problems. But that like I've realized in more recent years that I am still like working through some challenges with that in the realm of like, well, especially as we see society becoming more chaotic and dangerous and violence
Yeah.
breaking out more, this deeply felt sense of like, well, I've never been a fighter. I don't really like, I've never done any like martial arts really, other than like a little bit of boxing and taekwondo and
Yeah.
tiny bit of jujitsu. But
Yeah.
like this feeling that like, well, I don't know how to like protect myself and like my loved ones if I had to in a physical sense, you know.
Yeah.
But so many of the policing of our, how we express ourselves as men and our masculinity is in the realm of like safety in a social sense, from criticism and judgment and stuff. So it's yeah, it's deep stuff. Like there's so many different aspects to it.
So like, then that's true. That's true. And yeah, I thought of that myself as well. I mean, the whole defending someone if I had to. Like I sit naturally at like 220, so I'm like a big guy. I'm 6 foot and everything. But I was like, can I actually, like, if somebody knew how to fight a little bit, like, could I actually do anything to defend like somebody I loved? And then
Mm-hmm.
I got into Muay Thai because one of my brothers, he's actually a Muay Thai trainer. So I got into that and I started messing around with that, and it does feel very empowering. It's funny, the same way learning how to fight felt was just as empowering as learning how to use my emotions.
Mm.
Like I felt like the same type of power because it's like a new tool. You have this new tool and you're like, I can
Yeah.
use this in certain situations, and I can handle myself in a myriad of new situations that may arise or may not.
Mm-hmm.
um but to you, um like it was a whole journey for you, but like coming out to your family. And I only ask this because like in the Open Brother
I
Project.
just want to pause for 1 sec because I just want to just acknowledge that I'm like, you have a podcast as well. And I'm like, shit, I'm on your podcast now. Shit. I'm like, you're interviewing me.
Well, I only ask because I remember at one point I was doing a men's focus podcast with Jordan. Actually, it was called The
Yeah,
Hardy Gentleman, and we did a bunch of episodes. And like all of a sudden, I clicked in and I was like, oh, we haven't interviewed a gay person. Like we haven't interviewed a gay man,
yeah.
and that experience is so valuable to guys who are coming up, guys who are young. Maybe they're even our age and they haven't came out and they've had all these feelings. And like so like again, like you're a man, and that experience is so unique. Like what was it like coming out to family and friends and everything? Like what did that feel like having to walk up with that conversation knowing that was in your heart?
It was scary. Like I think there's something that I may have, well, I certainly have talked about it on my podcast before, but it's like every single like fear that we have tends to be like when you pull back the curtains on it all and you go as deep as you can on it to like what's at the bottom of the fears that we have, it's all based on fear of criticism, fear of judgment, and fear of being um, essentially banished from the tribe because we're so social. And for so many, like literally millions of years of our evolution as social creatures who are small, not big and strong relative to other creatures, no claws and big sharp teeth like other creatures, like we only came up and became the alpha apex predator on the planet because of our sociability and able like to cooperate with others in small and large groups and to build tools and stuff like that. But if we did anything to, it's like the same idea of like we don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to be the nail that sticks down on and stuff because we're afraid if we do anything to be socially ostracized, it's not just psychological, it's not just biological, physiological. It's wrapped up in like the very core of who we are as human beings at every level, bio, psycho, social, physiologically wired into our being that if we get ostracized or banished from the tribe, then we're dead. We're as good as dead. We cannot make it. That's
Yeah.
why even like loneliness is so bad. It's like a public health epidemic. Even like certain like medical professionals talk about in today's age, and so prevalent after the pandemic. But it's like we we not only instinctively feel unsafe when we're alone, but we like our body literally produces more stress hormones because it's trying to get us to go and find other people so that we're safer because we're safer in big numbers. And if we, it's funny because like if a predator comes, then we either have more of us to fight, or hopefully someone's slower than you.
Very, very true.
Right. So yeah, so coming out was scary, and it's interesting because it's like, obviously you can see, you can tell, you can hear in the way that I'm talking about it now that clearly I've done, whatever it might be, some amount of work that I've done to get to the point that I'm at, to speak openly and fairly comfortably about it. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that there aren't still some fears, because
Mhm.
it's like my buddy Jordan was asking, like, how's that work for my fiance and I, and it's like, we're just living life and trying to navigate it as we go, and figure out what kind of life we want to build together, and how to navigate, you know being it, we've looked into some different stuff, that it's interesting, because it's like the more you there's so many people out there. It's like no matter what your experience might be, as long as you just look for your people, you're going to find them. Like there's other people out there who've gone through this shit. There's other people who've created, podcasts and resources and programs and whatever it might be, communities around the thing that you might be trying to understand or solve for yourself. And it's,
True.
you know,
True.
it's so beneficial to actually like find those people, right? So it's like she's straight, she's curious, and she's a very open person, open to experience. So she's curious, or not like a totally hard shut down about possibly exploring different things. And we've come to kind of learn that it's called like being in like a mixed orientation, sexual orientation relationship,
Mm.
where one partner's straight and one partner's bi, kind of thing. But yeah, it's like we're just trying to navigate it. And coming out was like a weird process, because I just I for most of my life, I didn't think I was in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was like, I really like, I've had a bunch of long-term relationships with women. I love having sex with women. They're the most beautiful creatures on the planet. And I I was so kind of like closed off to this other part of myself, that I didn't even know it was there, kind of. And it's so interesting because it's like, it was around, like, I was like 28 or 29 back into the, or no, I was like 32
Yeah.
back in 2013 when I started exploring this. And it's like, for this to like come out for me in a way that felt like, um, almost like blindsided, in a way, to some degree, felt like, fuck, that's a hard identity change to fucking contend with, as I'm,
Yeah.
in my mid 30s. But I just think about, like, yeah, there's so many people, whether they're younger or older, who are trying to navigate themselves in the world and within themselves, that, my doing whatever work I've done, and having whatever conversations I've done, can, just like we were saying, like, you have no idea the ripple effects that that's going to have, and how it's going to affect somebody. And it might cause people, I have a fear, almost, because of how challenging this type of journey, especially, and confusing can be, and
Yeah.
scary in some ways, that if I sort of prompt other people on that journey, it's going to be challenging for them in their own ways. And then having that fear of like being a people pleaser, or the fear of criticism and judgment, or
Yeah.
fear of violence and not being able to protect myself. Like there's all these things intertwined with one another. But like, oh, well, what if somebody goes on this journey themselves because of something they heard from me, and then like blames me for how fucking hard it is, kind of thing. But then on the flip side, it's like, I'm gonna, you know, in ways that I can't even imagine, help to liberate people. And even in ways that have nothing to do with like sexuality per se. It's like just,
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, because as you're saying this, like recently, like over time, I've been open about it on social media and stuff. Like I went from like meditation and meditating, trying to clear my mind, doing mindfulness, Buddhism type stuff, to now I started praying to God. Um,
Yeah, I saw
and
your video the other day mentioning that you recently, somewhat recently, went from praying to the universe to praying to God, right?
yeah, and actually like acknowledging a creator and everything. And as you're explaining all this, it feels the exact same way. It's like like because yeah, like the whole tribe thing you're talking about, it's like I know I have so many friends where we've talked about God in like a silly way, and how like this couldn't have possibly happened and that couldn't have possibly happened, and now I'm like on the other side, it feels like. And it's like I don't like I've been open about it because I'm always open about like anything that I'm going through, and like that's the like kind of the vow I took, per se.
Mm.
But now it's like yeah, I'm just on the other side, and it's like which one of my friends is going to be like, oh, you're one of those people now, or which friend might walk away. I mean, even like, I mean, my wife, she's so supportive and she always will be, and I know that in my rational mind. But like when we first met, like
Hmm.
we met on talking about how silly the notion of God was, and it's
Yeah.
like I remember when I first started praying to God, I was like, how is she gonna feel about this? Is all of a sudden, is she gonna have like a big problem with this now? And
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that gonna be a rift between us now? And like I don't want that. And obviously that's just nonsense, but it's like it was just a fear that was coming up in my mind. So like I identify with what you're saying so much, because yeah, like that not being in the tribe, it's like I haven't even told my brothers. And it's so funny, like you
Mm.
said, the last people you told are your brothers, and it's like me, like the same thing. It's like probably gonna be the last people I
Well,
bring it
and
up
I'm
to.
talking like I'm talking. I didn't tell my two older brothers. One is like same mom, same dad brother, and then my stepmom's kids. I have an older brother and a younger brother,
Sure.
and I'm talking like years. I didn't tell them for years after I told my mom and my dad and my sister and some of my other friends.
Wow.
And one of my best friends, he's actually my friend that I tried starting a business with, and it almost ruined our friendship. And then it
Mm.
took some time to kind of like rebuild our friendship. But there's like some, because of the history and again this like somewhat irrational fear. I actually haven't even told him yet. I think he might have like heard it or seen it elsewhere because I've been a little bit open talking about it,
Of
but I
course.
haven't directly had a conversation with him. And yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like I knew full well, just like you're saying, that in my rational mind, I'm like, I know my family is not going to disown me or not love me anymore, or like cut ties with me because of this, or even like you know this irrational fear I had that like my brother's got two young kids, and I don't see them too much because they live in Kitchener, but like I want to be in their lives. And so this like just provides something to be fearful about, that like, well, what if worst case scenarioing, being like, what if my brother disowns me and then doesn't even like let me be in my niece and nephew's life anymore? And obviously I'm
Yeah.
like, that's so stupid, that's not going to fucking happen. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for whatever reasons, and again, it's because that rational mind is the cortex, it's the front of the brain, it's the most evolved part of what makes us human. And those fears are all coming from the brainstem, the amygdala, the fear center and stuff. Like they
Yes.
really aren't the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's
but it's
nuts.
interesting. Yeah, that's one thing that I love about I think life and about connecting with people and having conversations, is that so many of the things that we fear and challenges that we have so many similarities across what you would think as like very different things. Talking about sexuality compared to whether it's religion or spirituality, or like this
Yeah.
idea or conception of God, right? And I get you, man. Like I had a similar experience, and it was also um it was pretty much like the first time it was like the second or third time I did mushrooms, but the first couple times I didn't really get high. And then the first time I really had like a high trip off mushrooms, I felt so connected to God and to the universe and to some higher power and higher intelligence outside of myself. And it, to this day, I remember it so like viscerally as one of the most like profound and beautiful experiences of my life. And when I was explaining it to like some of my like good close group of friends, like, you know, a week or two later or whatever else, I just in passing sort of like almost said that, like I just like felt connected to this higher power, whether you call it the universe or you call it God. And I wasn't baptized, I've never been to church other than for funerals and weddings, you know, but yeah, it's like it makes sense. Like we know about the history of the sort of like the Inquisition and the injustices and murders and power struggles of and corruption of the church and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And there's perfectly reasonable, rational explanations and ways to understand the shift from, you know, our history of religious, superstitious, non-scientific, non-rational ways of thinking and interacting with each other in the world and understanding the world into this like more secular society. That's the thing too, right? Like this period of time that we just so happen to have grown up in has been a very secular Western societies that we've grown up in and stuff like that. And the idea of God, the word God, is so charged with so much context of like the historical atrocities and all sorts of stuff that it can provide those challenges, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, for myself, I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. So my idea of religion and God was always like segregation, because when you're a super Orthodox Jewish person, and like when you're a little black kid in that neighborhood, you're very left out. You're not going to synagogue 3 times a day like some of them. You're not going to Shabbat dinners. You're not doing the seders and everything, even though later on in my life I actually did. I was invited to many seders, and because all my friends are Jewish, and like they'll be like, yo, of course you're coming, you got to come, you got to come and sit down, and you know. But like growing up, it was always very much like I didn't want any part of God, because I saw the divide that it would
Mm-hmm.
cause you in people, and I didn't want any part of that. And I
Well,
don't know, like
especially
just
religions, like different religions,
that's the
those
thing.
like religious wars too, of like Islam
Yeah,
versus Christianity versus Judaism versus
exactly.
whatever other fucking paganism, like.
Exactly. So that always had me, that always had me standoffish of it. And I don't know, like as time went on and I did so much mushrooms, I mean, like I have mushrooms all over my arm, you know. Like, I'm completely tatted
For
with
those
mushrooms.
listening on audio, he has several psychedelic mushroom tattoos on his arm.
Yeah, and as I kept doing that, and you know, I did a lot of acid, and a lot of well, not a lot, but I've done ayahuasca and DMT. As I just kept doing those things, it was like you feeling the connection and everything like that, and then getting into spirituality, the meditation, and then starting to like look at my life and becoming so grateful and seeing all the things that were happening for me, and all the things that were happening just in the right time, and having my wife come into my life, because she literally is like the callus for like people always talk about how much I've grown and changed and everything. And like she's like such a huge part of that, like me
Mm,
buckling down and becoming this like better man. Like it's like literally like because of her. Like I wanted to be better for her and yeah, for
mm,
myself. But like all of a sudden I had this external thing where I was like, I can be better. Like this person sees me in this amazing light, and like I wanna at least be half of what she actually sees in me, kind of thing, you know?
yeah.
And just all of that together, I was just like, there has to be something, there has to be some kind of higher power, something, because there's just too many times where I shouldn't have been in the situation I was in, too many times where I've just been gifted so many amazing people and so many amazing instances, so many amazing conversations. It's like, and they come just in the right time and they help evolve me so much that I couldn't help but see it as some kind of higher power. And then finally, I just kind of like, I was like, I want to thank somebody other than the planets and the stars and gray matter and black matter. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to thank a creator, and yeah, I just started doing that. And honestly, like as soon as I started doing that, like even more stuff started happening. Even better things came into my life. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I was like, this is like really real. And I mean, even as I started doing that, then people, like you said, you'll always find that tribe. You'll always find those people. And then all of a sudden, those people would come out of the woodwork, like in places where I never thought I'd find them. And yeah, it was just like I had to give in. I had to come out of the closet, like you said. I didn't even know I didn't even know I was in the closet. Like that was the thing. It was the exact same kind of experience. I didn't even know I was in it. And when I look back,
Hmm.
exactly like what you're saying, when I look back, I'm like, oh, that was me clicking into this, or that was me being afraid of this part. And that
Hmm.
like it was just so many similarities in what you're saying. So it's like it's really, really cool to hear that. Really, really cool. And thank you for sharing it, because like you are a man and there's other men who are going through your struggle, and maybe even like exactly what you said, don't even know. They don't even know because they're not
Yeah.
allowed to have that, like, so it's like we have to share as much as we can in order to inspire people to find out who they actually are.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And I forgot to like finish what I was saying when I like had that experience and told my group of friends that I like felt like I was connected to God or the universe or this higher intelligence or power. Like so quickly, like one of my like buddies was like, yo, like, are you a God guy now? Like, what's up? What's up? Are you talking about God and shit? And it just was like, it was one sentence, one God, one time, and such a quick response. And that just speaks to what you just said, that like people don't know because they're not allowed to know, because our culture and our stories and our beliefs and at least our understanding of history makes it so that we have just like so much baggage that gets in the way of us giving ourselves and each other space to like
Yeah.
honestly be with ourselves and each other and find out who we are and who we could be. Because it's like when you actually do find people that give you that space, which I feel like with you, right, it's like that's what allows us to like learn and grow and really connect with ourselves and connect with other people and connect with the higher power. And it's like, and it's interesting too, because like I find the conversation around God and religion and spirituality and the scientific understandings and stories for the fundamental forces of nature and reality and physics and gravity and electromagnetism and all that stuff. It's like they're they this is something that I've like really like noticed over the past like probably like 15 years or so, that this divide that there has been in our more secular society between science and religion is something that needs to be healed. Because like like everything, the more we can see ourselves as one, one species on this planet, on one planet with all these other species, that is essentially making one giant superorganism. And that all of these like different beliefs and ideas, different religions, and the rift between science and religion, like if we're going to actually evolve and solve the myriad extremely complex challenges that we have, it's only going to be through providing more space, connecting
Yeah.
more authentically,
Yeah.
giving people more space to like be who they are,
Hmm.
and like healing the rifts between these things. Because like what you're saying is like you wanted to like pray to something, not to like this inert dead matter kind of thing. Like,
Hmm.
and it's like, and it doesn't even have to be, religion and spirituality doesn't have to be unscientific or
Yeah.
or irrational or anything like that, right? Because it's like a lot of people, like, I'm of the mind of thinking more that, like, whatever the fundamental creative force of the universe that gives life to everything else, to matter, to energy, to the, fundamental physical forces of gravity, electromagnetism, the weak and strong nuclear force, whatever gives, it's like, you know, there have been really smart people trying to, and still not able to, like, solve the puzzle between, like, the large Newtonian mechanics of the movement of the planets, which is so, like, accurate. We have, GPS systems that pinpoint us on our,
Yeah.
planet, and give us real-time feedback of where the fuck we're driving to. It's like
Yeah.
that shit works. And then you have this totally different thing that's actually incompatible with that on the small scale, quantum physics. And that there's, like, they've been trying to find the unifying principles and the unifying force. And for me, it's like, well, that's God. And what's wrong with talking about that? Or it's interesting too, because you said, like, you're talking about gratitude, and it's like gratitude is the antidote to depression, and it's
Mm.
the shield against anxiety, sort of, right? Like,
Yep.
and it's all contextual. It's like, it's also a skill, and it's like your life will change for the better if you practice the skill of gratitude,
Mhm.
right? And that even when you take the step, sort of praying, which also can really just be looked at as, like, surrendering the sort of, like, power of how your life is gonna, like, unfold in certain ways
Yep.
to something outside of yourself that's a higher power, which actually helps to, like, kind of be less depressed about the mistakes you may have made, and shame and
Yep.
guilt, let go of that stuff a bit more, and to be less fearful for the future, because it's like, you're going to do what you're going to do. You're going to try to, obviously, you're not surrendering life being in your hands as if, like, you can't plan and act on your plans and create what you want to create. But
Yeah.
when you surrender to the idea that there is a higher power, and there is. It's like, gravity is a fucking higher power than us. Like, you're not keeping yourself on the ground. But that it's like,
True.
when you push it far enough, it's like the ultimate, like, source of, like, creation of reality itself. Like, that there's something that does that. It doesn't matter if it's like, I don't think it's like a anthropomorphized, like, figurehead,
Yeah.
anthropomorphized, like, white Christian God, or like a Muslim Allah. It's like more like a fundamental force of the universe, which a lot of people use. They think it's consciousness. Maybe it
Yeah.
is. It's another thing we can't fucking solve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
True.
But it's like, you have you ever heard that quote from Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, that, like, God is dead?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, again, something Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, but it's like this idea that, like, because people don't believe in a higher power anymore, or that, the idea that things are sacred in this world are actually attached to that as
Mm.
well. And it was like that belief in a higher power, whatever you might believe that, like, God is, and the recognition that there are things in this world and in this life and in us that are sacred, and they are to be regarded as such, and they're to be protected as such,
Yep.
that without that, our society will collapse. We will descend into chaos. And it's like, hey, look at our world. What do you know? Right?
Very, very true. Yeah. 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 I
Right.
hear
And
you.
so I believe that it's like, I commend you, man, because, again, it's like, with the stories that we got, it takes courage to go and explore anything that's kind of against the grain of the bullshit that we've been fed, and to cultivate your own, like, relationship with whatever you believe that higher power of this universe and life itself
Yeah.
I think it's important, man. Like I think we're seeing a turn, and a lot of the chaos and like the kind of culture wars and stuff I've heard um, explained as like we're actually in a post-secular society now, and a lot of the beliefs that we're seeing with like QAnon and all sorts of conspiracies and shit, they're
Yeah.
very much grounded in religious frameworks, like
Mm.
entirely. And a lot of the, you know, really rigid ideological beliefs on both extreme edges of the political spectrum is that
Yeah.
we're not in a secular world anymore. We're returning to religious fundamentalism and tribalism. And I honestly think that this conversation and this conception of like God and sacredness and a higher power is like going to be fundamental to like us sort of coming together and solving the problems that we're faced with.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, both sides have to talk. Like, I mean, when I say like both sides, like religion and science, they both have to talk in order to figure out everything, I think. Like if you can look at things, like if you're religious and you can look at things deeper scientifically, there's probably a lot of benefit there. And if you're very like scientific and you look at things religiously, there's probably a lot of benefit there. I mean,
Mm.
I'm in this Christian WhatsApp group, um, and one guy was like, he's like, you know what? He's like, I feel like the Lord has called me to like fast. He's like, I was fasting on Wednesdays. He's like, and it made me feel really good and resilient. And I was like, oh, fasting. Like, I'm like, do you fast like 24 hours a day? Or he's like, no, just from like this time to this time. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, I do that. It's actually something that causes something called octave. How do you say the word? I want to say like octography. It's like the
Something. I
pro
know I've heard it too. It's a weird word.
yeah, and it's like the process of like dead cells to get eaten up by your body. Your
Yeah.
body starts eating up the dead cells, damaged cells, and stuff like that. So I'm like, you're kind of right that like it kind of makes you feel resilient, and because it does, it literally makes you like a new
Yeah.
person. And I'm like, it like that probably is like the benefit. Like that's probably why it's getting easier for you to do certain things you've never done. Because like when you fast like that, you're becoming new. Like you're becoming like very new. Like I was saying, like scientifically, and like
Mm.
he didn't answer back to that. Like it was like he didn't want to hear that answer. He just wanted to hear God is good and whatever. And I was like okay, I was like whatever. But like it's like maybe in religion at some point they understood that if they fast that it's actually beneficial to their body. Like maybe they had a scientific understanding at one point, and you know what I mean. Like, and I don't know, it's just it was funny that he just didn't want to hear it at all, but at the same time was doing it and was reaping the scientific benefits of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It apparently is like a protocol for like major disease treatments as well, for the same, obviously the same reason, that it's like
Yeah.
when you have like cancer or different like debilitating like diseases and shit, like fasting is part of the kind of like the recuperation healing process.
Yeah, I do intermittent fast. I have like a 15-hour fast, 12-hour water fast every day, and I feel absolutely incredible just from doing it. And
I've tried it a bit. Like how do you find it, it seems really like the biggest challenge around it for me is like how to fit all the caloric intake that you need to maintain your weight, let alone like gain if you're trying to like, you know, build some muscle or anything like that in like a, oh, excuse me, in like an 8 hour window. It's like fitting sort of breakfast, lunch, and dinner into like an 8 hour window. I'm like, man, I can't eat that much food in that in that much time.
I I guess like I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Like I said, I sit pretty easily at 220. So it's like yeah, like and even right now I'm like 230, 229. So for me it's just like if I am not getting all the calories, I'm like okay with that because I already know that I have some fat there that
You
can
got some
burn and
extra
yeah, exactly. So
to
I'm
tap
always
into.
down. Yeah, exactly. So for me it's
I
a
guess
little
that's I've
different.
been like I've been around on the daily basically like fluctuate between kind of like 145 and 150, and I've been the same weight since I was like 18.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
That's insanely healthy too. That's probably why you look so young.
Maybe
That's
that's one thing, because I have had a lot of challenges with my mental health in my life. I got one of the things I got. I definitely like abused like the drinking and smoking weed and smoking cigarettes
mm,
quite a bit in my life. Never like harder drugs. I into psychedelics and stuff. Being like a curious psychonaut to a large degree, and really love learning about the science. But something I got like from a young age around that time, like I moved out of the house when I was 18, and I knew like I already had a lot of challenges with my mental health, and if I was going to deal with life and deal with the things that happen inside my brain, I need to eat healthy for my, not just for my
mm.
body, to like I've always been fit and like kind of athletic, and so I always have been like, if I ever start gaining weight from like drinking a bit too much beer and not exercising enough, I pretty quickly change that sort of behavior, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to gain weight, man. Like, but also just knowing that like I need to eat healthy for my brain health, like for my mental health.
Yeah, I clicked into that around, I would say around like 24 years old, 23 years old. I was like, I gotta eat healthy. Like I just noticed that it was actually because I became gluten free because I started noticing that my mind was less foggy. And then
Yeah.
later on in life, like probably around 30 years old, 31 years old, I learned that I had like an intense allergy to gluten. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's why. Like I started eating healthy and I just had a hunch that like, I'm like, I just feel better when I do this. Like everything works better. My mind works better, my mood's better. And then later on, when I started working alongside doctors, because I was doing a lot of video work for them, functional medicine practitioners, naturopaths, like different doctors in the field, I started getting a lot of the things I thought were validated. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm like, I really do have to do this. Like it really does affect my mental health dramatically if I don't do this.
Yeah, I was working with a coach last year who had done this leadership program with me, and she is like a health and nutritionist coach and stuff, and she talks about the same thing a lot, that like,
Cool.
the things we eat like really do play a big role, not just in our physical health, but of course in our mental health and our mood and how we feel. And that was something that I think it was partially prompted by the stress of the start of the pandemic and the mainstreaming of a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, that sort of really brought me back to like some challenges with that, because I got really deep into conspiracy theories in my early 20s, and I felt like I was really deep down the rabbit hole, and it took me years to crawl out. And it's one of those things like you can't unlearn, the things that you learn. And
Of course.
I tried to take a more scientific kind of like outlook on understanding the world and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there are certain things that the claws are deep and they're really gripped. And when the mainstreaming of variety of conspiracy theories started happening at the beginning of the pandemic, and just with all the stress and uncertainty, I I had some digestive health issues
Oh,
flare
wow.
up that I had never had before in my life. I literally, even up until like a few months before that, something I frequently said was that like I had like an iron stomach, like I could eat
Mm,
anything in any order, in any quantity, and
yeah.
I do not have any problems with it, kind of thing. And then it's challenging when those kinds of things happen, because it's been actually consistently ongoing for the last like couple years now, just
Wow.
like digestive kind of issues on and off. So it's something I'm still trying to figure out. But
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I've had that for a long time. I notice when I just eat clean, like it's getting a lot better. But yeah, for me, it was just like gluten, dairy, kind of like grains in general. But now I'm like good with grains. So it's like, I don't know. Like it's weird. It's like going back and forth and changing and like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, sometimes my understanding too is that it's like if there's an overgrowth of like bad kind of like microbes in your gut that are impacting your health negatively, then sort of like when you fix it, you kind of kill them all. And then you
Mm,
actually can handle some stuff that you couldn't while like you were kind of like having like an unbalanced kind of like gut health
mm.
microbiome.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of like my fiance was having like some similar issues herself, and she saw like a nutritionist and stuff about it, and they said kind of it's like, you know, cut all of this stuff out for at least like a few months and kind of let
Mm,
it get a handle on, and then slowly reintroduce them and see kind of like if you have reactions to them or this or that. But yeah,
true.
it's challenging, man. Like what I want to be conscious of our time because we're coming up on almost 2 hour mark. I'm down to keep chatting for a bit longer, but I want to
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
be respectful, and we can always like do it again. I'd be happy to come on your
Cool,
podcast
cool.
sometime, and
Yeah, definitely.
I really enjoy speaking with you, and really relate to a lot of the things that you have to share, and I appreciate you asking about me as well, of course. And
Yeah.
yeah, in the realm, I guess, in the realm of whether it's mental health or it's, you know, diet or working out or creating art or a business or working towards like getting a degree or whatever it is, it's like the same the same requirements are present and the same principles always apply. And it's
Mm,
one of those things that understanding what those things are from a rational intellectual perspective, most people, I would say, no, especially in certain realms. Like there's not a single adult on the planet unless they have some sort of like developmental issue or something that doesn't understand to like be a healthy weight, to be in shape.
yeah.
You have to eat healthy, you have to limit your caloric intake to not take in a whole bunch more than you're burning, and you have to get a decent amount of exercise. But it's like
Yeah.
it's not intellectual understanding that stops us from doing the things that we want to do. It's emotional problems. We
Yeah.
emotionally eat, we emotionally numb out with our phones and drugs and alcohol and stuff. So I guess I'm just curious, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on, and we can maybe we'll end on this, but like what are your thoughts and perspectives and advice that what work for you, or just things that you know for well, I saw like that board that you shared the video of
Yeah.
yesterday. I think I want to actually do something like that myself. But so maybe explain what you've been doing with that, and just in this realm, kind of like any advice you have for.
Advice to deal with that type of thing. I mean, the first part is spotting it, like really being able to spot it. Like I had,
Awareness.
yeah, like you have to really like be aware of like what happened. Like for me it was like, okay, like I'm gonna, like I've tried quitting like smoking weed. I'm right now, I'm like in my longest stint of not smoking weed that I've ever had in like at least 2 decades, because I started smoking weed when I was like 12.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, 14 for me.
Yeah, right. So and that was because literally it again, being aware, like I'm able to look back and see like I got assaulted when I was like 8 years old by like a very grown man. It wasn't sexually, it was just violently. So that always stuck with me. And then um my dad disappeared. Like I was seeing him and then he was gone just one day, and that obviously affected me. And then I got into the Big Brother program. Even though I have brothers, I
Hmm.
still was in the Big Brother program to have that older figure. And then he left. He had to leave the country, which rarely happens in the Big Brother program. Um, so I knew that, like, and then all of a sudden, a year later, I'm smoking weed. So it's like, obviously, when you look back, you can see exactly what happened. I went through a bunch of traumatic things. And then
Yeah.
I found this one thing that was like, smoking weed was like, oh, okay, so everything's better now. Everything's so good now. Like, especially when you're that young, you're that young, blasting your brain with that amount of serotonin, right? You're
Yeah.
just knocking yourself out with it. So it's like I understood why I was smoking. That helped a lot. And then from there, it was like, okay, when I try to quit smoking weed, what happens? Okay, first time I like gained like 50 pounds because I started emotionally eating. Like started eating a lot because
Yeah.
before, like when I started smoking weed, I was around 350 pounds when I was a kid. I was really,
Wow.
really big. Yeah, yeah. I was a really
Damn.
fat kid. And I started smoking weed. I started losing weight. I started hanging out with cool kids. You know, it was the thing that I was good at. I discovered I was really funny. So it was all these like really positive like anchors towards smoking weed. So it like became my safety blanket as a kid. And I just kind of kept it going, right? And then the girls, you know, because like when by the time I was 15 I was selling it in like large amounts, and that kept going until I was like 27, 28 years old. And like the girls and like the lifestyle and everything, it was like the best thing ever. And it was the first thing I was good at because I was terrible at school. And it was like the
Yeah.
first thing where I was like, I'm good at this. Like I know how to smoke, I can roll joints, I sell pounds of weed. Like I'm the man. Like this is great. Why would I ever stop doing this? I know how to do business. I this, that. So
Yeah.
yeah, just spotting spotting your triggers, spotting the things that are causing you to want to numb yourself out. And then from there, it's like not even to bring God into it, but like trying to find something, whether it's something bigger than yourself, like a reason to quit, like maybe a person that you want to become. Maybe you've been holding yourself back from something, like like you got to find something to live for, to really live
Mm.
for, because when you're numbing yourself you're not really living. Like you got to find something to actually live for, to live vibrantly for. um that was huge for me. Again, my wife, a huge thing. Like when I met her, I was like, things just started changing. I realized that I could be something different, and I wanted to be something different because not only did like at first it was like I felt like she deserved something better, and then as time went on, I realized that I deserved something better. And like as that feeling kept progressing, it just, my life got better and better, and it just got easier and easier. Um, so like the trick for me in terms of like I guess your question is, how do I stay on point, or how do I stay away from like numbing myself and stuff like that? Like how do I keep myself
Yeah.
together?
Yeah, it's a big topic of
A,
conversation. So it's not even
a,
really like specific, just
a lot of motivation. Like when I was 20, I found motivational speakers because I didn't have
yeah.
any positive role models around. Everybody was either a drug dealer, a debt collector, or some, you know, like just somebody who was a part of like the underworld kind of thing. And I found Dr. Eric Thomas, and I started listening to him, and I was
Hip
working
hop
these.
preacher.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I started
Nice.
listening to him. I started downloading everything because I realized like if I have no, I started realizing that I started listening to affirmations and then binaural beats and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
started realizing that like a big part of, like, you need something positive to be like pounding into your head. If you have nothing positive around you, you have to like supplement. You know,
Yeah.
if your body can't retain any iron, you need a supplement. If your life doesn't have anything positive, you need a supplement. So that was my supplement, and I really started listening to a lot of that stuff. And I really started internalizing it because I understood that like your brain had this consciousness that takes in everything. So even if I didn't believe it at first, I really just kept pounding it and listening to it and listening to it, and it became all I would listen to. And then it really, really helped. It really helped form me as a person.
Hmm.
It really helped, like, and again, like proper men to look at, proper men to aspire to be like, proper men to learn from. That was like a huge part of it. um yeah, so it's like the path to stop numbing yourself is like what do you actually want to live for, and how long
Hmm.
do you want to wait? You know, I have a mentor. He's a coach, my friend Oliver. I get choked up even saying it, but like I was talking with him, and he's like, how long do you want to wait? Like how long do you want to wait? Like to do it, to do the things that you know you could do, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you got to ask yourself that if you're if you're numbing yourself and you're walking down that path, you got to ask, how long do you want to keep doing it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah, man.
how long are you going to keep
Yeah.
on having that happen? And I remember I think of that all the time now. Like if I'm like having doubts about something, it's like, okay, so are you going to wait 20 years on this as well? Like you're
Yeah.
30 something now, you know? You going to wait 30 years? You going to wait 15 years? Like how long are you going to wait? I can't even believe I'm crying. Jesus. What am I? What am I, gay or something? Jesus.
No, I'm so appreciative of you sharing that and being vulnerable, and
Yeah,
obviously like
yeah.
you're preaching to the choir, and I've made a lot of changes, and life's a roller coaster, right? It's like I've made a lot of positive changes and
Yeah,
had
yeah.
setbacks, and the last couple of years with the pandemic and so much uncertainty and social
Yeah.
chaos and finances have been like really tough the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. I've had some relapses and some setbacks back into like, what's the fucking point? Nothing matters. I don't
Yeah, of
matter. Blah
course.
blah
Of
blah. That
course.
shit. So it's like you just gotta recognize the thing that's interesting is awareness. It one of my I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of like coaching programs and individual working with coaches and stuff, and something that someone talked to me about recently was like this idea that awareness is half the battle, quote unquote half the battle. It's like no
Yeah.
it's not, no it's not. It's like awareness is 25% of the battle or less, like
Yeah.
75% or more of the battle. Like awareness is extremely important. That's not to say it's not to diminish its importance, but
Mm.
it's to put it in its place, because awareness doesn't lead to action. It doesn't lead to change.
Yeah,
The only
true.
thing that the only thing that does that is like you making those things happen. And it's like you're saying, like that question, like how long are you going to wait? It's going to be another 20 years, another 15, another 10. You're going to be in the same spot, worrying about the same shit,
Yeah, man.
dealing with the same problems and shit. And it's like, and we can't exist in a vacuum. Like we can, you know, the best of us do really well at, you know, taking action on the things that they want to and creating themselves to be and their life to be the ways that they want it to be. But for anyone who has, for a variety of reasons, more challenges doing that, it's like it doesn't matter if you sort of like find it easier to kind of stay on top of shit yourself without external accountability, or if you're more challenged with that, which I definitely find challenges myself. But that it's like it's 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 the people that you surround yourself with, the conversations that you
Oh
have,
yeah.
and just like you
True.
said, it's like if you don't have them in your life, then you go and you supplement them. You find them online. You find, it's like we have access to everything, and most of it's free as long as you have an internet connection now. And
Yeah.
similar happened like when I was in my early 20s and I had dropped out of college and got really into politics and social issues and conspiracy theories, and felt so fucking like afraid and hopeless about the world and our
Hmm.
history and our chaotic species and our challenges and my inability to like deal with it, and also feeling like I didn't have any friends or family that I could talk to, let alone to like mentor me or help me. And it's like you gotta do whatever you can and find that. And when you relapse and when you go back into your fucking bullshit and you know woe is me, victim mode, fucking self-pity, all that type of shit, it's like awareness is, how, quote unquote, half the battle or less. But it's like you got to find the mentors, you got to take in the whether it's reading or watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts or having conversations with people. It's like you got to find people that are going to help bring you back out. They're going to help lift you up. They're going to support you. And like you said, how, you saw the man that your wife saw that you could be, and you
Yeah.
wanted to change for her before you even wanted to change for yourself. And it doesn't matter what order it goes in. If you find someone that you want to change for, or you want to change for yourself first, doesn't really matter. It's like you just gotta reconnect to the awareness of like what it is that you want, who you want to be, what you want to create. And it's not about not having relapses. It's not about not failing or not faltering
Yeah.
and falling back and stuff. It's like the work, quote unquote, that we need to do on ourselves to know who we are and who we want to interact with in our life and the communities that we want to be a part of. Is like recognize when you're not aligned with those things that you want and you're acting like your old self. It's the awareness is to just get faster at recognizing it and get faster at getting back into action that is aligned with those things,
Yeah,
you
true,
know?
true. That's very true. Yeah, because now when you said that, as soon as like you started talking about the awareness, yeah, because like I've been aware that I needed to stop smoking weed since I was like 20. Like I got into it and I was like, yo, I should stop. Like I think this is like a hard. I remember being in high school and I was with this guy and we were like rolling a joint in like this like back hallway, like hiding. And he goes, I don't know about you. He's like, but I'm really addicted to this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, me too, man. Like actually we were like 16. I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm like, I like need this. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, it's nuts. And we just kind of like
Yeah.
rolled the joints and like just started smoking. But like, yeah, I knew from there, like, oh, I'm really addicted to a thing. And like that didn't bring about any change. Like, and
Yeah.
there were times where I thought to stop, but like it would be like very short lived, or maybe I'd try and stop for a day or two and I'd smoke like 2 packs of cigarettes in that time, or I'd start vaping something, or maybe I'd go on a mushroom binge, but there was always something, you know what I mean? Like always something to fall back on. And yeah, you're right. You're right. Awareness is not everything. Like I've had the awareness for, for years, for decades. And it didn't happen until a key thing that you said is like when you think of like who you want to be. Because like when I say like I wanted to change for her, it was because like she could see me as like a really good father. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm getting high 10 times a day. I'm like, what's she talking? I'm like, I couldn't actually be a good father, but like there's something in me she sees, but I'm like, I couldn't actually be a good father in this condition. And like it was just like
Mm-hmm.
little steps like that. I'd be like, well, I do want to have kids with this woman, and maybe I should get high less. And I remember like at one point I was like, maybe I should not smoke until 4 o'clock, because at least if I have kids, I'll be able to drive them back from school and then I'll get high. I'm like, maybe I can start there, or like maybe I'll just get high in the
Yeah.
morning. And she'll like it was just all these like, trying to step around the problem, like work around the elephant in the room kind of thing. And yeah, it was just gradually I was like, okay, if I want to be this person, these are the steps that have to happen. These are the things that have to be taken away. Like, is being this person more important than like smoking a joint and sitting and playing Call of Duty for 4 hours? Like, I
Yeah.
think I think they are. And I really started doing that and taking stock of that. And that's why I have like that board. And if you look at that board, you can see it's like make my wife feel appreciated, make sure I sleep enough, to stay gluten-free, dairy-free, take care of my body. It's like maybe all these things are more important. And as you start to find enough of the things, all these other things, whatever your hardships are that you're going through, your addictions, your numbing things, they all start to just be less important. And as long
Mm-hmm.
as you can keep that in mind, that big stack of shit that you want to become, if you can just keep that in mind and remember that every time that, even if you are getting high, like remember that as you're getting high, remember like, man, this is not putting me on the road to that.
Mm-hmm.
Spending money on this is not putting me on the road to that. Being like this is not putting me on the road to that. If you can like keep that in mind, eventually, eventually you'll get tired of your own shit. You'll get tired of your own bullshit and you'll be like, this is enough. Like I'm
Yeah.
not where
Well,
I want to be just because of myself.
that's the key, right? Like that's one of the main keys I found is that you, even with the awareness, even a high level of awareness, you will continue to do
Yeah.
your being on your bullshit
Yeah.
as long as it takes until you get like clear on like what the consequences are of continuing to act like that, and asking yourself questions like that, like how long are you going to keep doing this for? You want to see
Yeah.
yourself in the same place in 10, 15 years? Like getting clear on that and getting sick of your own fucking bullshit. And just also like recognizing that a lot of times there, something that I've come to learn in more recent years that I want to continue to learn more about is like, you know, it's our traumas that are at the heart of a lot of these behaviors starting, because a lot of like problematic behaviors start in adolescence or even younger in a
Yeah.
lot of cases, or you know, late teens, early 20s for a lot of shit too. But it's like they start in our youth and then they sort of continue, and even though we know we shouldn't do them, or we should eat healthier, we should smoke less weed, drink less, do less drugs, you know, work on, you know, staying out of debt, spending less money on shit we don't need to, whatever it might be, it's like we know all that shit, but it's like we're numbing out and we're doing these addictive behaviors to cover something up. And it's like going
Yeah.
inside, writing, journaling, doing therapy, making sure that you have people in your life that you can really be like open and vulnerable with, and
Yeah.
figuring out what exactly is it that's at the heart of that. Because it's also, it's not just like numbing out, because a lot of times it's like smoking weed and drinking and stuff is fun, especially if it's social, and it's, that's how it often starts. Like it was for me, it started socially very much before it ever became problematic, or in, you know, sitting at home getting high by myself all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like where that can be fun and make everything taste better and be more funny and more enjoyable. But it's like what you're actually doing is, it's like you're numbing the negative and uncomfortable emotions and the discomfort that we have inside of us, that unless we do that work, unless we have these conversations, then it stays below the surface and you'll keep numbing it. And some stuff is scary. That's why it's like, for me, it's like I either have this conversation with these different parts of myself and deal with my fucking sexuality, or I'll continue being the way I'm being. I'll continue being the person that I'm being, and being so attached to my old conception of who I am, my old identity, until I lose my fucking mind with
Mm.
like struggling with depression and anxiety and substance abuse,
Yeah.
and ruining my brain and my body, or learning to love who I actually am and finding out who that actually is. And no
Yeah.
matter what I find to be the answer, to find a way to like accept it and love myself and be with it, and go and find the people that are going to do that for me as well.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Eric Thomas always says you got to go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very true. And I mean, and the last thing, I mean, of me numbing myself, I was gifted um when I was like 22 or 21, I re-met my father. And that was a big, again, it was a big awareness, but it didn't change things, but it really lit a fire under me, like a fire that I was like letting kind of cinder, like, and kind of burn. Because when I met him, he was, I realized that, first off, I saw him and he lived 30 minutes from where I lived. So it's not
Yeah.
like he was gone. So he lived
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
close. And I just realized that he was exactly like I am. When I get high, I don't want to see anybody and I just want to chill. And I realized he had just let that get out of control. And when he gets drunk, he doesn't want to see anybody. He'll put that before other people. And then he kind of
Mm-hmm.
just chilled and chilled and chilled until his children were all grown people. And some didn't care to talk to him. And others were like, where the fuck have you been? And like, and kind of I clicked in and I was like, I can, because I realized I had both of my parents in me, and I was like, I can either be exactly like my dad, which I'm like on the road to being, or I could be exactly like my mom. Like I can pick which parent I grab most of my qualities from, like because I know them
Mm-hmm.
both now. I can see them both, And like my mom, she wakes up at 4 a.m. She was a bodybuilder. She started a business when she was like 55 and started making more money than anybody in our family ever made. Like she gets after it, you know. Now she like has the resources to live here and in Barbados, and like she goes back and forth. So like she goes after it. And then I saw my father, like this person who was like stuck in the Scarborough and like really into his addiction so deeply that like there
Mm,
was no digging him out of that. And for me, I was like, if I keep doing this, like a lot of people figure, they kind of figure where they'll be if they keep on numbing themselves and stuff. But I actually had a clear vision of where I would be and what things would be like if I kept doing it.
mm,
And it kind of goes back to Jordan Peterson. He says, you know, when you're trying to improve or you're going after a goal, you have to give yourself a little bit of heaven and a little bit of hell. You know, you have to see the ideal and everything that can be, that would be amazing if you achieve this thing, and you also have to envision the horribleness that could happen if you just let this thing, if you fuck it up and you just don't execute on the thing that you're going after. So yeah, I had
yeah.
both of those. I had both of those, and that was a big help to me. So I would just say to anybody going through it, like just get around good people. They don't have to be Christians. They don't have to be, they don't have to, like, just get around better people than the people you're around. Or maybe voice what you're going through to the people that you're going around, that you're hanging around. Like, just, you have to make the positive changes. They're not just going to come up. It's not just going to change on its own. You
Yeah.
have to actively go after it. You have to actively go after it. If you know there's something that you're supposed to change, something that you'd like to change, you have to do it yourself. Like, that's the only way it's going to change. Your brain's not going to suddenly switch. You have to force the change. You have to really go after it. You have to really, 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 like, I can't stress it enough. You have to go after it, because otherwise it's just like it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse, whether it's overeating or it's drugs, anything like that. Like, whether it's like you're abusing yourself sexually, like maybe you have a sex addict kind of thing, like whatever it is, you have to go after that change yourself. You have to. That's the only way that it's going to stop. And if it's with dealing, if you have to go back and deal with something that happened to you when you were young, then you have to go back and deal with it. If it's somebody who did something, you have to have the conversations, whether it's with yourself or somebody external. You have to do
Mm.
it. You have to. Like, that's the only way it's gonna happen, because you can't live your life numb all the time. You can't. You can't do that. You can't. You know.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Passionate. Preach.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so I think like that's a good place to wrap up. We'll do the standard tell me well, first of all, thank you so much for I'm super super glad that I reached out, and I've really cherished like the connection that we've had, and obviously conversations like this just build
Yeah.
it and make it deeper. And you know, you are the type of person that I want to have in my life, not just for you know, the kind of conversation we're having, the work that we're doing, but it's like you're a creative person and you're out there fucking
Thank
like
you.
making shit happen. And yeah, it's just great to talk to you, and super appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable and inquisitive. And where can people find you?
Well, first, I mean, yeah, thank you to you as well, because I've always seen you as a very, very intellectual person, very astute person, a very open person. And like the last few years, I've been watching your content and listening to podcasts, and yeah, it's just when you said like you seem really well read, it was like such a compliment, because I'm like, wow, this smart guy thinks I'm smart too. I'm like, wow, I hope I don't mess this up. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, the connection is absolutely appreciated. It's I hope to meet in person. I really do. I was really hoping to have you over here, but I know it's a trek. I've moved very far away from Toronto, so I understand completely. But maybe when your living situation is a little different or something, like maybe we can get together with the fiance wives and do something like
no,
that.
man,
You know, like
we'd be down. Like we have a car. We can make our way up there.
yeah,
I
yeah,
would love to.
definitely. We just got like a dining room table and some chairs, so
Amazing.
we're looking to have some people over. So I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be super sweet.
But other than like where people can find me, I mean, my Instagram is everything Colin, and also the Open
Colin
Brother
with one
Pro.
L.
Yes, Colin with one L. Yes, yes. The correct way. I'm not one of those 2L Collins. All
my
all the
I,
Colin.
one my younger stepbrother is 2L Colin.
Oh, really? Oh man, that's funny. That's so funny. But yeah, you can find me at Everything Colin. That's on Instagram, and also Open Brother Project. My YouTube channel is called the Open Brother Project as well, where I'm sharing myself and my experiences and the books I'm reading and the things I'm doing to better myself. And other than that, yeah, those are the two places you'll find me. And yeah, I'm going to be doing the Open Brother podcast that's coming soon. I'm going to be lining up a bunch of men from all walks of life that I can talk to and learn from. And yeah, my Instagram, you can check that out. I'm sharing all sorts of things. Sometimes it seems like I'm a conspiracy nut. Sometimes it seems like I'm a life coach. Sometimes it seems like I'm an artist, you know, like I'm always on different things. But all together, I hope you can see that I'm a good person. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
other than that, yeah, that's where people can find me for now.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again. And yeah, there was one thing when you were explaining something like near the end there where you said, like having kind of like proper men in your life that you can like look up to and connect with and stuff. And I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought like, like I see you as being a proper man, and I see like men having conversations like this where you can like really go deep and get vulnerable, and fuck, if you get a little emotional, it's like, who fucking cares, man? and
Yeah, man.
and I appreciate having men like you to connect with in my life.
Man, thank you so
So
much.
thank you.
I really appreciate that. That's my mission right now. So thank you so
Well,
much,
you're
man.
you're doing well, man. You're doing killing it. All right, man.
Thank
Well,
you.
yeah, we'll have to set up like a little dinner sometime or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah, definitely.
let me know when you're thinking. I'm sure Justine would love to,
Yeah,
and I
yeah, that'd
would
be
for
great.
sure.
Great,
All right,
great,
awesome, man.
fantastic. All right.
All right, peace, brother.
Peace.